everybody. Welcome. Happy long weekend. How are you? I know it's a long weekend for Canadians, for Americans. Some of you may be calling in from other places today in the world. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Hello, hello. So, today we are going to talk about quite a few things in a good bit of detail. I'm going to be answering your questions throughout. So, please, as we go throughout the presentation, please feel like you can post your questions in the chat. I'm going to try to pop in and out. If you are not familiar with who I am, my name is Thais Gibson, and it's so nice to meet you. And I'm the founder of the Personal Development School and the creator of Gibson Integrated Attachment Theory. And today, in this presentation and masterclass, you are going to learn not just about how to build a thriving business, and we'll talk at a high level about things like marketing funnels and why this matters, but also we're really going to talk about the important topic of contribution and how to really find how to bring meaning and fulfillment through helping other people learn and grow and heal. And we're going to go through a lot of information. I'm going to talk about how to really become a high impact relationship coach that clients truly can't wait to work with, and the secret to making real transformation happen. I truly believe there is one big secret ingredient that so much of the world still isn't engaging in properly, despite its potent power for creating real and lasting transformation. And this is something that you can absolutely apply to your own life, but also something that you'll be able to learn about how to apply to the lives of other people. And we'll also talk about how to build a wait list in a business and how to make this all happen. If you're really creating real transformation and working with people, you'll have more and more people wanting to come to you, have that wait list without ever having to cold call people or anything of that nature. And we'll talk about how to become a successful relationship coach from literally working anywhere in the world and designing your life in the way that you want, on your schedule, on your terms, and in your own way. We'll also discuss a little bit about what integrated attachment theory really is. You'll hear me refer to this today as IAT and why it works so effectively. We'll talk about some of the perks, but also some of the cons of being a certified and accredited relationship coach. And we'll talk about how the IAT program provides you with everything you need to make it in this booming industry. I'll also share with you just how booming of an industry this is about to become. And we'll talk about why anybody, anywhere can really become masterful at this content and these tools. And, my hope is that by the end of today, you see that, hey, it's an actual possibility to design my life on my terms where I get to truly make an impact every single day, have financial freedom, and really live my purpose if this is something that you truly feel aligned with. So we're going to get into all of this. Before I get to the good stuff and dive in, I want to let you know that if you do stay till the very end of this masterclass, you'll walk away with an actual IAT tool that will help you and your potential current clients, future clients discover the different beliefs that are maybe limiting you from achieving your potential or limiting other people in their lives. It's a really powerful tool for gaining insight into somebody's blocks that could be preventing them from truly achieving their highest potential. And we'll talk about, how this really applies to the revolutionary approach that IAT is taking part in. And if you decide this is something you're really interested in doing, I'll share a special discount code at the end of this webinar as well for a really good early bird discount on the IAT program. But it won't be till the very end of this webinar that these details are offered. So we've got a lot to cover. I'm so glad you're here. Before we dive in, I am super curious to know what brought you here today. And if you want to share in the chat, what made you want to jump in and learn more about this today. A lot of the themes that I'll tend to see are things like somebody who you're here because you just love helping people. You just have always been somebody who cares about contribution, or somebody who's always been interested in human behavior, psychology, or relationships. And maybe it's just one of your favorite topics to discuss and always learn about. Some of you may be like, you know what, I've just wanted to own my own business and have the flexibility and freedom to work from where I want on my own terms, and to make my own schedule and have the sort of power to choose the way I want things to go. So I'm super curious if you feel comfortable sharing what brought you here today. Hello, Michelle, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hello, Gabriel, welcome. Gabriel says, so grateful to be here with all of you. That's so nice and grateful for you all. So Mary Howard says, hello, hello. Super excited to be here and continue to grow as a coach and guide. Thank you for offering this call. Amazing. Cool. I'm excited to share. If you're already in this space or this industry, you'll really appreciate one of the topics we'll discuss today. Hello, Lynn. Human behavior fascinates me and I would love to help others. Yeah, it's so interesting when we have those topics, those things we just love to learn about on our own time and on our own terms. And it's like, even if you are, in your free time or your time off, you still find yourself learning about human beings and being so interested in human behavior. It's a good sign that you're in the right place today. Psychology was my first major. I chickened out and changed course because I thought I'd never be able to get a master's or doctorate. Wow, that's so interesting to know. Hi, Chris Ann. Welcome. So Sarah says, yes, definitely interested in contributing, both at a personal and professional level. Amazing. I've been in the wellness field my whole life, says Melanie. Hello. And love helping people, and my own struggles. Amazing. Shelly says, I was very interested after hearing you on the Mel Robbins podcast and feel it could be really helpful as a life coach. Amazing. Very exciting. If I heal, I want to help others heal too. I remember you felt that way at some point, and I felt like it so resonated. Hi, MY. I think you asked a question the other day in the webinar. Nice to see you. Discovering I was a fearful avoidant and answered so many questions. I'm already a somatic breath coach, and I think this would work great to pair with breathwork coaching. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I work with human trafficking survivors, so I'm always looking for tools to help them individually where each client is at. That's beautiful. And there's a lot of deep attachment trauma that comes with that. Mind and body connection, I love. Amazing. Already as a psychotherapist and coach, working in my own business, interested to learn about IAT. Beautiful, Elizabeth. Awesome stuff. So many great shares already. Okay, there's lots of fantastic info coming through. I wish I had time to read through all of them, but thank you for sharing that already. And it just sounds like there's so many people who are very like-minded on this call today too, and interested in similar things and passionate about this whole topic of human behavior and growth and healing. So let's dive in. Okay. So I want to explain why, first of all, we ended up being in the position where we like copyrighted this approach, and why I really believe this to be a transformational approach when it comes to transforming patterns, beliefs, habits, and really helping people empower not just their personal lives, but also their relationships. And this could be a really long topic, so I'm going to try to make it, succinct and give you the short version. But basically, IAT, or integrated attachment theory, was something I designed and published after a decade of research and working in private practice. And I probably should have had better boundaries at the time, to be perfectly honest, but I was just so excited to work with people. So I was seeing like 40 clients a week, which is a lot. And obviously the goal, and we're going to talk about this and I'll explain this today, but the goal of IAT is for us to really be able to identify what somebody's relationship style is, aka their attachment style. And I'll explain the different attachment styles in a few moments too, although I'm sure many of you are quite familiar. But essentially, it's how can we change our attachment style to go from insecurely attached and really holding on to a lot of our painful and challenging attachment patterns that affect not just the relationship to everybody else, but most importantly, I really believe your attachment style to be the relationship to yourself first. Okay. And if we are able to change those patterns to become secure, we end up having, the ability to thrive, not just better personally and professionally, but also interpersonally in our relationships. And this creates profound breakthroughs because really the quality of our relationships, especially the relationship we have to ourselves, really determines the quality of our lives. And relationships go with us everywhere, right? We have relationships at work, how we negotiate, how we communicate with our family members, with our kids, in dating, in romance. I mean, there's relationships that are such a fundamental part of our lives on a daily basis. But what is different from integrated attachment theory versus just traditional attachment theory research is that we talk about how to change your attachment style. And in particular, we talk about how to do this by leveraging techniques from hypnotherapy and the science and research into neuroplasticity that target the subconscious mind. So if you didn't already know this, okay, your subconscious mind is responsible for roughly 95 to 97% of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. And only 3 to 5% of your daily behaviors and emotions and how you show up and how you make decisions really comes from your conscious mind. So, in other words, you're only really in control of 5% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. And you can see this in your personal life because I want to ask you, have you ever had a goal, maybe a New Year's resolution, where you decide, okay, I want to stop eating chocolate, or I want to go to the gym more, or I'd like to break these unhealthy habits like procrastination, or maybe getting angry at people in my life and raising my voice, or maybe shutting down and stonewalling people out, or even feeling like sometimes I tell myself I'm not going to call and text so much in relationships, but I feel like I can't help it. And you tell yourself, I'm gonna quit eating chocolate, or I'm gonna start this new habit. And then a few days go by and you're back to the old patterns all over again. Well, that is because this is the difference between your conscious mind versus your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is the one that can analyze your behavior and evaluate things logically and rationally and say, okay, I'm going to change these things. I want to tweak my behaviors. Your subconscious mind is really your habituated self. And we can tell ourselves things all day long, all the time, and we can wish that we could do things differently. But the follow through requires us being able to target our subconscious mind. Now, I'm curious how many of you've had that experience where maybe you're like, okay, going to the gym every day or starting a New Year's resolution. And the statistic, which is wild and really shows this, the statistic is that 88% of people before the end of the first week who set New Year's resolutions every year break down, don't follow through. So 88% of people set New Year's resolutions and then don't actually see that building momentum. And that's because our conscious mind can logically evaluate, can decide that it wants to do things. But our subconscious mind, unless we actually get habituated patterns into our subconscious mind is really the one running the show. So you have to imagine what happens if you go through life with really only accessing about 5% of your real power. And that's why it's so difficult for people to experience real change because people historically in the Western world, we really have a lot of our patterns and themes in terms of how we treat people and how we treat symptoms and how we address healing. The vast majority of it is still unfortunately targeting mostly the conscious mind. And so when you think of how this applies to your relationships, I wanted to show you, how this conditioning of your subconscious really permeates everything. Okay. And if you look at it this way, in childhood, you are all, just like I was, conditioned with subconscious beliefs. And a lot of these subconscious beliefs have to do with what we expect around love and connection. We have subconscious beliefs about the vast majority of things that we acquire through our early upbringing, but we acquire a tremendous amount of them about, what love looks like, what communication looks like, what our expectations are of people in relationships, what our fears are of people in relationships, what triggers us. And if you imagine for a moment here, okay, that you have the experience, let's say tomorrow, of going for a walk in the woods, and you're going for a walk in the woods and you see a bear. And you're like, oh my God, there's a bear. And you run away from the bear and you run away really fast and you get away, thank goodness. But let's pretend that the very next day you have to go back into the woods. What does your mind do? You go into the woods and you're like, where's the bear? Is it coming? Is the bear coming? And you're looking and you're worried and you're upregulated and you're waiting for the bear to pop up. You see, it's because your mind is wired to hang on to negative or threatening things a little bit more than positive so that you can protect yourself from them. Think about it this way. You don't walk out of the woods that day after running away and being safe and be like, oh my goodness, there was the most beautiful flower next to where I saw that bear. No, you're like, you're like the bear and its teeth and its big paws, right? We remember the scary stuff. But then what our mind does is it reprojects the scary stuff back out. If you had to walk back into the same woods the next day, you'd be like, the bear, the bear. But what happens when this scary stuff is that we felt abandoned as a child and we didn't have the attention we needed or the consistency we needed? What happens as an adult? Who's going to abandon me? Is it coming? Are they going to text me back? Why haven't they texted me back? Are they leaving? Or if you were betrayed a lot as a child, we look to read between the lines all the time. Can I really trust them? How do I know if my parents betrayed me back here? How do I know that nobody will betray me as an adult? I think everybody probably will. Or if you felt trapped a lot as a child, right? Or engulfed, constantly fearing engulfment, keeping people at arm's length, pushing other people away. So we have not only this negativity bias where we hang on a little bit more to the things that we perceived as being threatening or scary, but on top of that, we also tend to reproject them back out all the time. And we think that we're keeping ourselves safe, but that's not necessarily the case. Now, we all have versions of this, but especially strong ones if we were insecurely attached. And let me tell you my own version of this for a second. And I'm curious if you notice any of yours. So, I'll try to be mindful of my parents' privacy and not dive too many, into too many details or share a really big, scary story. But just as one example, something that I found really interesting in my own journey of growth and healing, because at one point I myself was a fearful avoidant attachment style. And we'll get into the attachment styles and their parts in a moment. But I grew up in a household where my parents had this big roller coaster relationship, lots of fighting, lots of big ups and downs. And when I was growing up, I remember being in this very specific moment, about 8 years old. And it was like a Saturday or Sunday morning. It was the weekend. And I remember I kind of like slept in a little bit and I had this little nightgown on. And I remember what I was wearing. And I came running down the stairs in the morning. And I remember my dad said, "Hey, I need to talk to you. Come sit over here with me in this office." And we sat down and he said, "Your mother and I are getting a divorce." And he let me know that this was the end and the marriage was over. And I cried and cried and I was so devastated. I was so sad. And then the next day came and a few more days happened and then a few more weeks passed and nothing changed. My parents kind of just went on like as if nothing ever took place. And I kept waiting in anticipation. I kept thinking like, when are they going to get a divorce? Who am I going to live with? I had all these questions and I would worry and worry about it. And life just simply went on and my parents stayed together. But then about 4 months later, this happened again. My dad sat me down one morning and he said, "We're getting a divorce." And I was like, "Oh no, they're getting a divorce. I was waiting for when I was going to find out that this was going to happen. What's going on?" And then this same pattern repeated itself. They didn't divorce. Everything just went on. Now, this same pattern then continuously happened about every 4 months, maybe 5 months, for my whole childhood until I was about 15 or 16 years old and they actually got a divorce. So guess what I did as an adult? My first serious relationship where I lived with somebody and I fought with this person constantly. I actually remember thinking times where we weren't fighting. I was like, "Oh no, maybe they're not interested in me anymore. We're not fighting," because literally my own subconscious mind equated fighting with love and connection. And guess what else I did? I threatened to break up with this person every 4 months or so. And I would do this all the time. I would threaten to leave. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. There was no awareness until one day that relationship ended. And I started to actually look at myself. I started to look at like, why are relationships so difficult for me? Why are there so many highs and lows? And I looked back and I realized, oh my goodness, look at this pattern. I've just replayed this pattern that I learned from my own childhood on repeat. And yet, this is something that we all do so frequently all the time. And so much of the roots of this come from how we learned to attach, how love was modeled to us, what we saw growing up, how that conditioned us. And then I happened to be in a university psychology class one day. At around the same time, I was evaluating myself and my relationships because I had a lot of ups and downs in relationships. And I had somebody say to me that your conscious mind cannot outwill or overpower your subconscious mind. So our conscious mind says, "I don't want to keep fighting. I want things to be different. I want healthier relationships." But if your subconscious has been conditioned otherwise, you are highly likely to continuously repeat those patterns. And so this is something that we all go through. And yet, this is something there are very few tools that are here for supporting people in healing these patterns, in understanding their own subconscious patterns, but most importantly, leveraging our understanding of neuroplasticity and how the subconscious mind works to be able to rewire them. Because you're not born with those patterns, they get conditioned into you. And they get conditioned into you. And we can really dive into things at a much deeper level. But at a high level, it's repetition and emotion that fires and wires neural pathways. And neural pathways, they're kind of like muscles. They atrophy over time. So if somebody stops working out their bicep muscle after working it out every single day for years, your bicep muscle shrinks. Neural pathways are similar. If you stop firing into the same patterns and you create new neural networks through repetition and emotion of new patterns, you actually rewire. Okay, this is a very, very simplified version of neuroplasticity. And there are many easy tools. We need a little bit of consistency around them, but they are easy in regards to how to recondition our own patterns and how to help people recondition theirs. Now, if you've ever seen this in your own life, I am so curious to hear. Do you have some of these different patterns? Have you seen these things in your own life as a whole? For me, as soon as I learned about this, I was like, why is nobody talking about this? Now, mind you, this was like 15 years ago almost now that I learned about this, and I was like on fire to learn more. I was like, where is all this information? I thought I needed to shout to everybody from the rooftops about this. I was like, hold on a second here. But I knew that I couldn't really be out there shouting from the rooftops when I still had a lot of my own stuff to work on. And I decided, okay, let me understand as much as I can. So I went deep into understanding the subconscious mind, neuroplasticity. One of the first big certifications I did was in hypnotherapy, and neurolinguistic programming, which both have a lot to do with the subconscious mind. Went into studying cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, shadow work, the mind-body connection, learned about attachment styles. I mean, I went really deep and I became obsessed with learning about this stuff. And over time, I was like, okay, this is some of the most exciting work I've ever done. And I learned very quickly how to rewire my own self and became securely attached in a pretty short period of time as a result. And then I was like, why is nobody listening? I need to tell everybody. I think my friends and family got really sick of me lecturing them. I was like, I remember a friend of mine being like, hey, you really talk about this a lot. I've heard about this a lot. Like maybe you should talk to people who like are interested in this stuff about it. And I was like, how is this not the most interesting thing you've ever heard? So before I even finished school formally, I went out and decided, okay, I'm going to start giving free workshops. So I gave free workshops. I would actually pay out of pocket. I would rent a library space for like $40 at the time for the day and give free workshops teaching people about the subconscious mind. And very quickly from there, as soon as you start doing free events, I mean, all of a sudden you're pretty away to the races. I remember my first free event that I did. 12 people asked me if I would see clients. And I was like, hey, I'm still in school. And they were like, that's fine. Well, can you just see us? Like, we want to learn more about this. And so I very quickly not only developed a busy client practice through doing these different events, but also developed a wait list. And then eventually that wait list became 2 years long, and I don't think a lot of people are happy to be on a 2-year wait list. So I decided I'm going to publish a lot of this work online and eventually built the personal development school. First did a lot of personal development school programs and courses in person for people in workshop format for, 8 or 12 or 16 weeks at a time. Eventually built the personal development school, which I think we've had over 45,000 students come through and take our courses at this point. I think we've had close to 60 million views on YouTube, and I've been very, very blessed to be on podcasts with people like Mel Robbins and Ed Milet and Lisa Bilyeu, and eventually wrote 2 books on the subject and published this whole body of work for relationship coaching. But then people kept asking me for one-to-one coaching. Like to this day, we get like constant, a few people a week, probably a few people a day reach out and say, oh, do you do one-to-one coaching? And, after a few years of that, I was like, hold on a second. Like, as much as I love teaching and as much as this is so valuable, some people still need that one-to-one support. Like, and sometimes people are in the depths of that and they could really use somebody one-to-one, and I'm not available for that. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to build this training. And what this training in integrated attachment theory does is truly, with not one thing held back, I put like my heart and soul and really tried to distill the best tools, the best subconscious rewiring tools from my own private practice and in working with students through the personal development school over the past 10 plus years. And I knew that if I really wanted to be able to help people and contribute at the next level, I also had to be able to teach people how to coach. And so this is where a lot of this came from. Now we're going to talk a lot more about this, but I just want to share, or I just want to check in with some of the chat here and see if anybody had any of these similar things. Yeah, Michelle, exactly. I'd be surprised if there's anyone who didn't have that experience. Exactly. Of replaying their childhood yet again, right? In a different form, 100%. Question, what's the difference between the subconscious and unconscious mind? Great question, Ren. So the subconscious mind is where we can retrieve information from. The unconscious mind, people often use them interchangeably, but there's actually a slight difference. So your subconscious mind, as an example, you might be able to say, oh, I feel this like feeling of insecurity. When have I felt this before? And you might be able to realize, oh my gosh, I used to feel this growing up when my parents would criticize me, just as an example, right? So you would notice something, you have to dig for a moment and kind of reflect, but you can retrieve information. Your unconscious mind is more so where, let's say as an example or an analogy, you might be like, oh, peanut butter makes me feel sick. Peanut butter just makes me feel really nauseous. And you may not be able to retrieve information, but maybe as a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, you had an older sibling who was like, hey, eat this jar of peanut butter. And you ate the whole jar of peanut butter and you got sick to your stomach. And so you may not have this like conscious memory or be able to retrieve information from it, but that information is still technically stored there at an unconscious level. Now, I won't go too far down the rabbit hole with all the theory stuff. You'll learn about that in a lot of the program, but your subconscious mind stores everything. Your subconscious and unconscious collectively store all memories you've ever had. There's some information and research to say that we sort of consolidate memories over time. But you can think of your subconscious as being this warehouse of information. We work in particular with the subconscious mind because we can retrieve information. We can recognize, oh yeah, I've had this pattern since I was young. Okay, let's rewire it. Let's do the work. But one of the coolest things about this work is even if you're sitting somewhere going, I just know that I feel afraid of abandonment and I don't know why. Doesn't matter. Don't need to have the sources. We don't need to unpack all these past experiences. We can literally just sit down and go, okay, let's start doing the work to rewire the fact that this fear of abandonment is coming up in my life every day now. And so you'll be able to rewire those neural pathways, those experiences, those fears and triggers in a very easy way. It takes a little bit of time. It takes roughly 21 days, 2 to 3 minutes a day. There's some exercises and tools, but that's really at that point, after 21 days of plugging into these tools, we've fired and wired neural pathways strongly enough that they are very unlikely to not stick. So anyways, that's a conversation for another time, but great question. Michelle says, I think I was FA once upon a time. It's hard to be sure though. I've been working on myself for 26 years. I'm mostly secure now. That's amazing to hear. Good for you and good for you for plugging in and doing the work. Awesome stuff. Gabriel says, for anxious attachment, our phones are a huge thing. Going no phone for a while really helped me, or checking it only once or twice a day. I love that. And what's so interesting? I'll be honest. It may not be the phone. It may be what you did when you unplugged from the phone. Because if you had somebody, right, in theory, who like unplugged from the phone and didn't work on self-soothing or being more present with themselves or learning about themselves or meeting their needs, then they might have just been as anxious if they were spending all the time trying to win approval around people and things like that. But I bet you, Gabriel, you probably did some things when you unplugged from your phone that were like you doing the work in some form, whether it was learning your own needs or practicing things that regulated your nervous system or all these different things. So that's really cool to hear. I'm sure that there's some good roots there. Sarah says, your work is incredibly valuable, Thais. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thanks, Gabriel, as well. Yeah, searching forever for this knowledge. That was one of the biggest things. Yeah. So I've recently had some time to work and learn on who I am in solitude. Beautiful. So see how you did something so productive with that? That's so powerful to hear. So yeah, another question too, from Mercy. Says, how can you rewire without knowing the context behind that core wound? Okay, so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but I will share this because this is like such a great question. So here's what happens, okay? I'll give you one tool right now, just a very high level tool, and then I'll stay on track for the presentation afterwards. But there's a 3-step tool. It's one of our starter kit tools when it comes to rewiring your subconscious mind. Okay. And we call it belief reprogramming. And basically, what happens is, let's say, and we'll just use the belief, I am not good enough, but you could plug anything in there. I'll be abandoned. I'll be trapped. I'll be alone forever. I'll be betrayed, right? All these big triggers that we carry because of past events. First step is we find the core wound and its opposite. You don't need to know any context. You just need to know that, like, oh, this is something that comes up for me on a regular basis. Like, it's something I fear or worry about in the future, or think about myself and my own internal dialogue. Like, maybe you find yourself going into networking events going, oh my gosh, what if I'm not good enough? What if people judge me? What if they think that I'm not smart enough or interesting enough, or, all extensions of the not good enough core wound. There's a tool for how to pull those up on a regular basis without ever having to know the context from the very distant past. Okay, that's actually the tool you're going to get at the end of the presentation today. It's called How to Find a Core Belief. But what we're essentially doing in 3 steps is we pick step 1, find the wound and its opposite. So not good enough, what's its opposite? I am good enough. Okay, really self-explanatory. Step 2 is we need to be able to speak to our subconscious mind, because you know why? You definitely are not consciously choosing to feel not good enough. Nobody's waking up every day being like, today, I'm going to tell myself I'm not good enough all day, and I'm choosing that, right? No way, not a chance. So what's happening is you have a subconscious mind problem. You have a pre-habituated wound or idea because there's been a lot of repetition or emotion of it from the past. So we have to speak to our subconscious mind if we want to see momentum, if we want to see the needle move. Now, what happens if you do affirmations? You're using your conscious mind to speak to your conscious mind. I don't believe in affirmations at all. I honestly think they're a waste of your time because, again, nobody's choosing from their conscious mind all day to be like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, right? We wouldn't choose to feel that way if we could. And your conscious mind speaks language, the language you would hear in affirmations. Your subconscious mind doesn't speak language. It speaks in emotions and images. So if I were to say to you, whatever you do, do not think of the pink elephant. What happens? Probably flash an image of a pink elephant. Your conscious mind hears do not. Subconscious flashed an image. It speaks in images. It was too fast, right? And so we spend a lot of time doing things like affirmations, and it's your conscious mind speaking to your conscious mind. That's not where the problem is. To speak to your subconscious, you need emotions and imagery. And we need it repeatedly enough that it's going to fire and wire. Okay. So where do we get emotions and imagery from? Well, every memory you have is in a container, or is a container for emotions and images. If I say, okay, tell me your favorite childhood memory, and let's say it's you playing on the playground with your friends, what happens? You see the images of the slide and the playground, right? And we've all seen when people share a favorite memory or an old thing that they found funny, they laugh or they smile, their body language changes because memories evoke emotion because they are a container of emotions and images. So now we know that we can get repetition by getting multiple memories because memories give you emotions and images. So we go like this. Step 1, I am not good enough. I am good enough. Find the opposite. Step 2, I need 10 times the actual memories of when I felt I did something good enough. They don't have to be big memories. You just need a little bit of emotion. It can be things like, I got out of bed at the first alarm this morning. I was a good friend yesterday to my friend. I showed up in a healthy way with my neighbor, in a difficult situation. These little tiny things that evoke a little emotional response. And because they're memories, you see the images of them. Okay. So we write 10 memories to support the new idea that you are good enough. And then step 3, we record it and we listen back for 21 days. Research shows that 21 days allow you to build neural networks strong enough, okay, for those to actually stick. So it's a very high level tool, but when you listen back, when you record it, and I mean like record it into your phone or somewhere you can listen back to it, in the first hour that you wake up or the last hour before you go to bed, you're producing more alpha and theta brainwaves, which are brainwaves you need to be very suggestible. In other words, those are the types of brainwaves when you go in for a hypnosis session that the hypnotherapist is trying to get you to be evoked. And so they're walking you through these things, these relaxation exercises to try to get you into alpha brainwave mode because now your subconscious is more open to suggestion. And so we actually naturally produce those brainwaves in the first hour when we wake up. So when we can listen back, it takes 2 to 3 minutes a day to our 10 pieces of evidence for the new idea, or 10 memories of how we felt good enough in that first hour, we're highly suggestible. And across 21 days, if we focus on the emotions and the feelings, we're actually permeating the subconscious mind and we are rewiring. Okay. Now, I recognize you just jumped on a webinar. I wasn't even supposed to tell you a tool yet. So this is one of many tools. Do not worry if you just heard that and you were like, whoa, that was a lot of information. In the program, there are many different tools for how to find these core wounds, how to rewire them, ones that work for different attachment styles, ones that work in different time windows and periods. And they all come with workbooks and they're deeply explained and there's lots of content and there's steps written out and sheets. So please do not worry if you're sitting here being like, what did she say? That was a lot of information. But there is so much power in knowing how to rewire your own subconscious mind so that you are not just the product of whatever your childhood experiences are and your genetics, right? If you're just the product of genetics and environment because you just had your genetics and were conditioned by your environment and you have no say, it's pretty disempowering, right? But knowing that we can rewire the imprints, the ideas, the fears, the triggers that are not serving us is something really powerful. And giving this tool to other people and seeing other people, giving many of these types of tools to people that help them rewire their own subconscious mind and to watch people's healing and progress and growth in the process is literally one of the most incredible and rewarding and just exciting experiences there is. And again, when you have all these tools for your own mind, it's also extremely empowering. You'll break through so many glass ceilings in your own life. Okay. So I'm going to get back on track here. If you didn't already know this, attachment theory, okay, is basically the study of how our childhood conditioning affects our adult relationships. Okay. So what this actually means is you are programmed, you are conditioned. They're the same thing by your experiences. And of course, the original attachment theory research came out of Cambridge University with John Bowlby and later Mary Ainsworth. And there are 4 attachment styles. There's the anxious attachment style, right? Who's sometimes clingy or needy or really anxious in relationships. The dismissive avoidant attachment style, who often gets afraid of commitment, wants to keep people at arm's length and protect themselves. There's the fearful avoidant who's very hot and cold, right? Often grows up in a lot of chaos and drama. And so they're the roller coaster relationship attachment style because that's their conditioning and what they know. And then there's the secure attachment style. And what's really interesting is that securely attached people are said to make up roughly 50% of the population. That number is on the decline. And what's the divorce rate? Roughly 50%. Yeah. And your attachment style is the #1 predictor of whether or not you have a successful long-term relationship. In fact, there was a tremendous amount of research done on securely attached people. And guess what? Securely attached people don't just report having longer lasting relationships, which in my opinion is only a partially meaningful metric. They also report being the most fulfilled in their longest lasting relationships. And that matters, right? Because is relationship success that you just stuck it out even though you were miserable? Not really, right? It's the fact that you were able to actually feel good about your relationship. And so, when we look at how our attachment style, all of our patterns are so deeply embedded into our subconscious conditioning, and yet your conditioning is a very solvable, changeable problem. We're being conditioned all the time. Neuroplasticity is taking place with or without our conscious mind being a part of it. This is where integrated attachment theory comes into play. It says, hey, let's find our conditioned patterns. Let's rewire what's not serving. And this is why it's this groundbreaking new approach that challenges this old school belief that our attachment styles are unchanging and that they're just static. And what essentially happened is that in the original attachment theory research, there was all this research done about what are the four attachment styles and being able to discover them. And, something called the strange situation experiment, where you're able to observe a child's attachment style at a young age. But there wasn't research. There wasn't much data or information at all about how to actually change your attachment style. And so, in my opinion, it was really incomplete. And that's where we created integrated attachment theory, which was blending this original research with, okay, what do we do from a neuroplastic point of view and a subconscious mind point of view to change our patterns? Now, without going too far into it, because I don't want to fire hose too much information at you just here today, but there are basically five major pillars that we have to rewire. Okay. So there's different tools, but we have five major pillars. One is we have to rewire our core wounds. Okay. Our core wounds are these subconscious beliefs that are our triggers. These are the things like, I will be abandoned. I am unlovable. I am not good enough. I am unworthy. I will be trapped, right? I can't trust, or I will be betrayed. I am defective, or something's wrong with me, right? These shame wounds. Each attachment style has very unique subconscious core wounds. Okay, you can see them. Anxious attachment styles, they have the abandonment core wounds more. Dismissive avoidance, they have the trapped core wounds more. Is it true that just because you are a dismissive avoidant, you'll only ever be trapped? No, but you sure believe it when it's part of your own conditioning. You don't know any better. So you just assume relationships will be like that, and you what? You sabotage them accordingly, right? Leave too early, have too strong of a flight response too fast, or if you're more anxious, hold on too tight. Don't let anybody get away. And that often accidentally pushes people away too much, right? Because they feel like, whoa, this is overwhelming and it's a little too fast. So, rewiring step one from our five major pillars, we rewire our core wounds. There's tremendously easy tools that are laid out in a specific, worksheet and workbook that are like step by step for how to do this. And there's more than one of them. And there's some that apply to different attachment styles more than others, but that's all part of the program. Okay. It may seem like a lot in this quick conversation. It's really, by the time you're doing 12 weeks of digging into this information and material, it's easy. You're like, okay, we do 2 sessions that are a couple hours long just on rewiring. People leave an expert on how to rewire their subconscious mind. Okay. So we rewire core wounds. The number two piece to becoming securely attached is learning what your needs are. Okay. Learning what your needs are and how to meet them in the relationship to yourself is the biggest factor in self-soothing. Okay. If you don't know what your needs are and you don't know how to meet them, then you're going to have a hard time self-regulating and self-soothing. It's something that securely attached people naturally know and naturally advocate for in their relationships and naturally know how to give to themselves. So we reverse engineer that. Okay. And there are very easy worksheets and a questionnaire for how to identify your needs and then how to show up and actually meet them. Okay. We have all these tools for how to meet them in the relationship to yourself that are very, very simple, easy, and we leverage these tools in a way that targets the subconscious mind. So it becomes the new natural way we show up in the world. Okay. We leverage repetition and emotion, a few different angles, so that this becomes the new normal. Okay. And these are tools that you learn to share with your future clients. Number 3, we do nervous system work for emotional regulation. Okay. All insecure attachment styles have a little bit of a dysregulated nervous system, spend a little too much time in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. What's fawn? People-pleasing mode. Chronic, pervasive, people-pleasing mode. Okay, you see it in your different attachment styles. We see the dismissive avoidant flighting a lot, right? Fleeing. We see the anxious attachment styles often fawning, people-pleasing, right? We see the dismissive or the fearful avoidant often doing a little bit of all of them, some fight response, some flight response, some freeze, some fawn, right? A little bit of all of this. And you will learn in this program as well how to regulate your nervous system. We do some somatic work, some nervous system regulation work. And obviously, I say you'll learn how to regulate your nervous system, but everything is set up and I'll tell you about the format in just a second, but everything is set up for you to be able to have tools for yourself. And then after the first 4 weeks of really digging into that, how to then share these tools with others. So you learn what it's like to go through them firsthand and then how to properly teach them to others, having that firsthand experience, which in my opinion is what makes you the expert. Because if you're just repeating things without going through them yourself, then it can be limiting. Then we have two other big pillars. After we do that inner work, we learn to communicate properly. Okay. There's really powerful communication tools, and this is really important for healthy relationships. Little things, little tools like this, small tools that go a long way. There's a few different ones, but check this out. How many of you know or have done this in your past? You go, you don't care about me. You never spend enough time with me. Instead of saying, hey, I'm feeling disconnected. I would love to spend more time together. Why don't we plan something fun to do this weekend, like a date night? It's called positive versus negative framing. The vast majority of people, and I'll tell you this as somebody who saw clients all the time firsthand, I would have clients come in and be like, Thais, my spouse never listens to me. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd ask them how they communicated, and you'll learn the checkpoints that you need to go through with people to see how their communication is. And they would be negative framing all the time. They'd be saying, you don't do this, you don't do that. People don't hear you when you negatively frame. They don't. You might as well not bother. Okay. Positive framing is how communication becomes functional and productive. So there's a few other tips and tools that you'll learn about communication, but they go a very long way so that people can actually be heard, communicate their needs because they know what their needs are, and then they learn to regulate not just on their own, but also with others. Okay. And last major pillar is rewiring your relationship to boundaries. Okay. All insecure attachment styles have a dysfunctional relationship with boundaries. Okay. Some have overly strong boundaries, like our dismissive avoidance from the survivalistic place. Some have no boundaries, like our anxious attachment styles. And some, like the fearful avoidance, have no boundaries until they get really angry or frustrated. And then they set boundaries almost exclusively from anger. Okay. Something I learned on my own journey when I was a fearful avoidant attachment style was that I thought I was good at boundaries because I would set them really strongly in a feisty way when I was angry. But guess what? If you're setting boundaries from a place of anger, kind of suck at setting boundaries. Okay. Because people just hear that you're angry. They don't hear what your boundary is. They're not listening. They're defending against your anger. And so there's a very important lesson to be learned there. So these are the 5 major pillars, and you will learn tools, not just for how to discover what somebody's core wounds or needs are or what their nervous system function is like, but how to actually rewire these aspects in a way that targets the subconscious mind so it gets habituated in. Okay. I want to just like explicitly be clear and say that sitting here in this 10-minute conversation about the 5 pillars versus going through 12 weeks of having them laid out, mapped out on worksheets, going through the steps, practicing them in the sessions, you are going to become an expert. Like if you're sitting here like, whoa, this is a lot, it won't be. Every person leaves like exactly knowing, okay, these are the tools. This is how I do it. People do a fantastic job. Okay. And everything is simplified and streamlined so that you'll be an expert at the end of the 12 weeks. So I'm going to pause and go in the chat for a second, but then I'll tell you a little bit about like the pros and cons of what it feels like to be a coach and some of the amazing parts, some of the parts that may be more challenging. And I'll share with you a couple of just stats about the market, the industry, all that kind of good stuff as well. But let me just see. Yeah. Sophia, exactly. My FA don't cross me attack. That made me laugh. The don't cross me attack. That's often what happens with a fearful avoidant, right? You hold it in and then it comes out so strongly. Would you recommend this course over your other courses to someone who doesn't plan to be a relationship coach, but wants help to help themselves heal their attachment? It honestly, Leah, depends how deeply you want to go. So if you were somebody who you're like, I'm sick and tired of having an insecure attachment style, I want to go super deep and just know that I'm going to leave at the end of 12 weeks as an expert and understand inside out and not have to go through an attachment style challenge again, this is going to be the deepest place to learn in the most detail with the most in-depth tools, 100%. And you can always make a career out of it later. But if you're like, I can move at my own pace and I'll take the time. It doesn't have to be really brief. Then I would say, okay, PDS is a great place to dig in just for your own healing from that perspective. If you want it to be a little more self-paced or flexible, or you don't have a lot of time. So those would be some of the differences. It's a great question. Um, yeah, Gabriel literally had no boundaries, been working on them. It's really tough. And sometimes you'll learn in the program that sometimes we have these core wounds around our boundaries, which prevents us from setting them. So sometimes we have this fear that if I set boundaries, people will think I'm a bad person. People will abandon me. People will think that I don't care about them, or people will um, think that I'm not good enough, right? And so then we have to sometimes rewire the core wound first to then make the boundary setting much easier. So there's some good little tips and tools that you'll learn throughout this. Step one, Mercy, yeah, rewiring core wounds. Thanks, Kristen and Kimberly. The questionnaire is part of the for your needs, Mrs. White, is part of the program. So it detailed questionnaires in the program that you can work on yourself, but also share with your clients. Um, great question. And yes, Lally, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Is it similar to Diane Poole or Peter Levine's somatic experiences? So I think you're talking about Peter Levine's somatic experiencing. And yes, I actually did a certification in that, and you'll learn some powerful tools that are very in alignment with exactly that. I would say that this program basically has within it everything you'll learn that you would learn in certifications like in cognitive behavioral therapy and neurolinguistic programming, in hypnotherapy, in somatic experiencing. You'll learn all of these tools in a distilled way from all of those different certifications, because that's what a whole lot of my learning was. And I've just sort of blended these things in, adding, different tools and components to them, but you'll learn about a lot of those roots and a lot of that theory throughout the program. So really, really great question. Oh, another great question. Now, this attachment theory is also pertaining to all relationships, not just romantic. Exactly. Such an important point and great question is that, yes, and I, more than anything, I want you to know your attachment style is the relationship you have to yourself, right? It's what you believe about yourself, how you treat yourself, and so much of, right? Watch this for a second. So much of how we treat ourselves is just conditioned by how we were treated. So you can see this really clearly, right? Dismissive avoidant attachment styles, they're emotionally neglected growing up. Who's the biggest neglector of the dismissive avoidance feelings as an adult? Themselves, right? We treat ourselves in the way that we were treated. That's been our conditioning. You'll see as well, like you'll see so many different dynamics of it. If you were spoken to in a really negative way growing up, if you were constantly criticized or put down, or people are really hard on you, what's your internal dialogue like as an adult? Really self-critical, really harsh. So we'll learn, how this thread of conditioning really works, but how we can actually disrupt it and change it once and for all. So there's so many great questions coming through here. So let's go back here for a second. So let's dive into this part. So um, here are some great parts, and I'll tell you the challenges too. Okay. What it feels like to be a coach in this space. So one of the first things is I'll tell you the good and the bad. So when I started, this was before the online era. So I started seeing people in person, and eventually moved to seeing people online as years passed. But one of the coolest parts is the freedom and the flexibility. I mean, is amazing because you can literally work from wherever you want in the world as long as you have a good internet connection. But I'll tell you my favorite parts of having worked with people in the past are number one, connecting with people every day. You learn so much all the time. I look back and I learned about so many different just career paths that people were on, internal challenges people had. You see over time, people differently. You see the human side of so many people in a vulnerable way that I just think there's a lot of peace that comes with that, a lot of grace of understanding that like everybody's kind of going through their own struggles in their own way. And it's a beautiful experience in terms of just learning and contribution and growth on an ongoing basis. Even when you're really good at tools, even when you've just got it down pat and you've been in the industry for a few months and you're really getting used to it, you'll learn forever. Like it will be an ongoing learning experience. The breakthroughs you'll have with clients are beautiful. I mean, it's one of the best feelings in the world to like watch people grow and heal and see them come in and be like, oh my gosh, this week this happened and I handled it this way instead of how I always would this way. And they're so happy. And it's just you sharing that joy. I mean, there's like really beautiful stuff about impact and contribution and freedom and flexibility. A lot of people ask me all the time, like, what is the financial part of it like? Usually most people in this space will see about 15 to 20 clients a week is the recommended average. Don't go above that, okay? Because you can burn yourself out. I learned that I never actually like fully burnt out because I like loved what I was doing so much. But looking back, I'm like, oh, I should have had better boundaries. I saw 40 clients a week for a while. And I wouldn't recommend. I mean, you can load up your schedule if you really want to, but I was just too excited and I didn't go in, by the way, to working with people as a fully securely attached person. I went in as like somebody who'd done a lot of work and come a long way and knew a lot. But I actually looking back, now from 10, 15 years ago, I still had some boundary work to do when I first started my practice. I still had some things to work on. And so, that's going to be important. But generally, people will see about 15 to 20 clients a week and charge about $150 to $200 US, depending on if you see individuals or couples. Um, Here are the challenges, okay? Number one challenge is you have to have great habits, okay? If you want to show up at 110% for other people, guess who you have to show up for first? Yourself. Exactly. And so you have to be in there. And I remember the first year that I worked with people, I was like, oh, I really have to make sure I get like 7 hours of sleep at least a night. I have to make sure I've got like good sleep hygiene before bed, make sure that I eat healthy, like all these little things that I didn't think much of. And I remember in the first year, I was like, oh, there's so much responsibility with this if I really want to show up. Where I really had to care about like my schedule and all these different things. But fast forward all this time later, it's actually one of the things I'm most grateful for because I've had really good habits for many years now. So I highly recommend keeping that in mind and knowing like, sure, you could go into your client sessions on little sleep or whatever, but like you're not going to feel good about it, right? So making sure that you take care of yourself is an absolute requirement. Not taking on too many clients and having good boundaries is going to be really, really important because this industry is a known industry where it can be a little bit easier to burn out. And you're gonna have to have good boundaries where you don't give your clients your personal phone number. You don't give, you communicate by email only because you'll see a lot of people in this space, you give your clients your personal phone number. It's fine if you give a work phone number and you have a separate number, but people will call you at 2 a.m. They'll, you know, you don't want to feel like you're on the clock 24/7 because that's not a good way to live. So you have to have really good boundaries, really good habits. You will have to make sure that you are um, clear on how you're setting up your sessions and your time. Like you have to make your own schedule and manage your time, right? You can hire somebody to do it who's like a VA for a couple $100 a month who sets up your schedule for you at some point as well. But you want to make sure that you are on top of those parts, okay, and conscientious about those aspects of your life. And those are sort of some of the challenging parts. And honestly, another challenging part is you'll build really deep connections with people, and sometimes you'll see that one of your clients who you really, really care about, a family member of theirs passes away. Or they go through something really difficult, and your heart, you'll feel it. Those will be the challenges. There's a real, depth to that, and there's something so beautiful about that at the same time, right? That you're like operating in like the real stuff of the world. Like, you're operating not in just such a deep way with people and how you see life and experience life. And then so there can be a bittersweetness to that, right? So those are some really big things to know, to pay attention to. I mean, there is an element of putting yourself out there. The fastest way, we'll talk a lot in the actual like IAT program about the fastest way to build a client practice and to get lots of clients and build your wait list. And the fastest way at a very high level is to take some of the work that you'll learn, a couple of tools, and do presentations at your local library or through setting up meetup groups online or that is the fastest way because once people see you giving a free workshop or you're an established expert with credibility and people are already there as a warm lead for something that you're there to teach. They care about it. That's why they showed up. And so being able to do that is going to be one of the fastest ways to really, really grow and build. There's a lot of other tools that we'll talk about in the program. We actually have a full business week where we talk about building marketing funnels and Facebook ads and all of these things in a really streamlined way. You get a little worksheet with action steps and all of these things so that you'll have that as a resource to always have at your disposal. And that doesn't have to be the only way, but that can feel vulnerable a little bit at first. So until you do it a few times and you'll end up feeling like, oh, this is really easy. This is simple. It'll be a skill that you feel like you have mastery around. And yeah, and then your new life sort of awaits at that point. So let's talk for a moment about a few different components. Okay, so really quickly, we've had a ton of people come through this program, but I want to share with you just the different angles people go. So we had somebody named Jennifer Noble. She was a first cohort graduate who went on to build a really fantastic business. She actually just did a TED Talk on attachment styles that came out a few months ago. And talks about our program in the TED Talk. We had Emily Blaine. So she built a really busy practice, okay? Seeing mostly people one-to-one and some couples, I believe. Emily Blaine, she actually used her relationship coaching certification to build a really powerful retreat-based business where she leads retreats for couples and goes to different locations around the world. And that's definitely something that you can do. We had Ben Dawson, who used his relationship certification to help people improve their workplace relationships, really focused on avoiding burnout through learning healthy boundaries, healthy communication tools, healthy learning their workplace needs, because your needs that you're going to learn are going to show up in every aspect of life. And what he basically does is he goes and gives workshops at large corporations. And then from there, people ask to work with him after he gives those workshops. And he has this wait list now of corporate clients. And then we even have Annette De La Barbara, who actually works with PDS. We hired her out of the program. And she has a wait list of clients she sees while she travels around the world. And on a weekly basis, I'm like, Annette, where are you today in the world? And she is always in some sort of, unique and exotic place all the time. And so you'll see a lot of those different dynamics. Okay. In terms of how this can really make an impact. And, I'm curious if you see any of those different paths sort of appealing to you, if you see yourself wanting to work with couples or individuals or in that sort of retreat space. And some of you might be like, okay, what if that's them? And what if I can't do it? But here's some things that I think can be really meaningful to know. How many of you know somebody who's divorced or having relationship problems? And how little do we actually have true tools that target the subconscious mind around transformation when it comes to coaching and relationships? And if you look at the global revenue of this business, this marketplace, the global revenue of coaching is 4.564 billion as of 2023. And in 2019, the revenue was 2.849 billion. So almost half. So this industry is booming. It is growing like crazy. And it is growing extremely quickly when it comes to relationship coaching. Okay. There's this huge industry of relationship coaching, but it's very new. And so you have all of this growth, all of these people looking for relationship coaches, and very little competition for how big the marketplace is and how much demand there is, which really makes it a hotbed to build a thriving business. And yes, you'll have to do the work and show up for it, but that's where you're going to see like tremendous growth. And when we look at the fact that roughly 50% of marriages end in divorce, that number's escalating. When you look at the fact that children who come from a divorced home are twice as likely to get divorced as those who don't. And when you look at things that are really tough on children, right? Divorce, unhealthy relationships, fatherless homes, poor communication, seeing constant fighting. I mean, this is really a tough thing for young children. And I like to be like, and maybe this is too idealistic of me, but I like to imagine what it looks like in the world if a lot of these children grew up in a loving home where parents and individuals had better tools for how to communicate, how to set healthy boundaries, how to talk about needs. And if these tools were established at an earlier time, how much that could make an impact on just future generations. And, when I look at this whole space, something that is so meaningful to me is, I can teach a PDS and do all these things, but I can't be there one-to-one with everybody and support individuals and, as raising children or parents who are looking to bring their kids into a healthier environment, or people who are starting off a new marriage or relationship, or are sick and tired of having their own attachment issues. Like I don't get to be there for that. So my hope is that for those of you who feel really called to this today, that you'll get to sit here and go, yeah, I can see myself doing that. And that's something we get to create together. That's something that we get to sort of share with the world and individuals together, because I need help with doing all of that. So anyways, so I'll tell you a little bit about who I feel this is what I'm here for, to protect and help children and future generations. That's so beautiful. That's why I always help divorced women. What I love most about helping them is the healing effect on the kids, and I want to learn more and more new tools. I love that. That's so beautiful, and it's so true, right? Um, do you have any coaches that work with parents? I would love to work with parents. Also, parents who want to be better for themselves and their kids. Most individuals work with adults. And some of those adults are parents or not parents, but I would say it's about a 50-50 split. But we do talk about at the end, we have Business Week and we talk about the different formats and things like that. There's some simple tools that we can apply for parents to share with their kids and for ways of simplifying the tools in ways that can actually impact kids. And we can talk about the neuroplasticity of kids at some point during the program too. So great question. Does this coaching only apply to adults, but it can be used to work with kids and adolescents? Exactly. So it can be used to work with kids and adolescents. The program is based around the tools that are most direct with adults, but we will talk about how adults can then share those tools, and some ways to help rewire kids by being in proximity, because parents are conditioning their kids all the time. So we talk about different approaches to doing that and how to create environments that are doing that in a healthier way. Lally says, hello, Thais. Will this program help with the following: epilepsy, anxiety, alarm, OCD, resistance, depressions, negative thinking, and overthinking? Great question. So epilepsy, I wouldn't say very much. That's definitely something I would say like work with a physician around, but anxiety, yes. Where do you think anxiety comes from? Core wounds, unmet needs, dysregulated nervous system, three of our five pillars, big time. Depression, same thing, has very similar roots. So big time. Anxiety, depression, negative thinking, overthinking. We actually talk a little bit about OCD even, and how our compulsive behaviors are the result of obsessive thoughts that actually come from core wounds first. So there's something called the I am unsafe core wound, and you'll see manifestations of that. I don't want to spiel too much at once and overwhelm anybody, but we talk about how to find those roots and rewire those things, and it will have a profound impact on the way we think and the way we feel on a regular basis. And of course, our behaviors and actions tend to follow. So we'll talk all about that in a lot of detail. The only thing that I think is less there is epilepsy. Like that, we won't talk anything about epilepsy. And I would definitely say that could be like a big place of work with a physician, or a doctor that that I would direct people to. We will talk about referral programs in Business Week and how to actually set up referrals where you can refer out to people. They can refer back to you, how to set up networks so that you can build funnels that way in your business. I mean, there will be lots that we cover. Okay, and another question: what time are the live classes for the course held? That is my concern I have due to my work schedule. Okay, so let me tell you this stuff, because I see a lot of these questions coming in now. So the course begins on the 22nd of March is the next cohort, and it begins at 6 p.m. Eastern is the live. So here's the formats. Let me take you through the formats of the course here first, okay? So basically the course is 12 weeks. We have a live, but we also have an on-demand. So for anybody who can't make the live, you can actually still go through the on-demand certification if like the time zone isn't a good fit or anything is challenging there. You'll be able to go through the on-demand version. And then from the on-demand, you still take your exam at the end. And then at the end of your exam, you pass the As long as you pass, you get certified. I also want to let you know that if you go through it, you're not just certified, you're also accredited, which is sort of like the big industry standard that's like you get to say you're an accredited coach and certified. So that's a big deal. The other thing is that the format of the actual IAT certification program is that you do 4 weeks going through the tools yourself. So we have our actual internal PDS coaches. They take you through 4 weeks of going through the tools. So you learn your core wounds, how to rewire them, what your needs are, how to show up and meet them, how to self-soothe and regulate from that perspective in the first 4 weeks. And the reason I'm such a big believer in this is I just don't think that you can be the best possible coach just learning and regurgitating information from a textbook. I think that it's like go through it firsthand, have the experience, understand the tools inside out. A lot of people ask me, like, what if I'm insecurely attached and I'm not fully secure when I decide to be a coach? That might work to your benefit, honestly, like, because you'll get it in such a deeper way. You know what it's like to go through it firsthand, to be doing the work and in the work. And so, I think that that's a really, really powerful thing. I will say, if you're insecurely attached and then not doing the work, that's not good. But if you're doing the work, then you're on your path to becoming secure and you're going to be able to relate in such a deep way with your clients and going through those nuances of, hey, you became secure firsthand, you move through that is going to be really, really powerful. So you go through that for your first 4 weeks, go through all the tools firsthand, and then you begin your 8-week intensive with me. So I personally teach everybody in the live. You go through about 3 hours of material each week in recorded. So you can do that part on your own time. And then we do 2-hour sessions together. And in that 2-hour session, I answer your questions firsthand. I show you the tools live. And we do critiques examples. So people can volunteer. They can also, you can either watch if you don't want to volunteer, but then you can volunteer and you can do the tools live and I critique it. I give you feedback. And then at the end of that 2 hours, we open up the breakout rooms and we have our trained facilitators and coaches lead the breakout room session. So it's open and you just get a chance to practice with other students if you want to do more practice of the tools. So what I love about the live is that it's this really holistic experience of like you learn the theory and the material, you've got all the tools and the research, you have all the worksheets, everything is mapped out for you so concretely. So you don't have to like memorize everything right away. You have it all literally there in front of you. You can have it up on your screen, walk somebody through the questions, they're up there for you. And then you come in and after practicing and going through it that week, you ask me your questions. We go through the answers together. We showcase the tools, both live and critiqued with other students. And then if you want to stick around and do practice periods after, that's available as a resource for you too, all included within the program. And so that goes through our 8-week intensive. And at the very end of the program, which is week 12 of the entire 12 weeks, we dive into Business Week and we talk about in detail how to build marketing funnels, how to put together Facebook ads, how to do advertising in general. The different ways to build marketing funnels. So you can see, is it going to be through like doing in-person presentations or doing advertising? Or, what are some important things about having an email list and creating high value content and nurturing that email list? So you will learn everything. And the big pieces that we go into specifically throughout the 12 weeks together is rewiring your subconscious mind, neuroplasticity, all of the tools you need to know for neuroplasticity, how to really dive into those core pillars, rewiring our core wounds, learning to wire in the natural ability to meet our needs, rewiring our nervous system, and actually being able to stay more regulated instead of dysregulated. And then, of course, communication tips and tools, how to condition healthy communication patterns into the subconscious mind, relearning your boundaries. And we even talk about how to rewire any unhealthy patterns of behavior. And the goal is that you are able to start seeing clients right at the end of the program. We often have people who are already seeing practice clients like partway through the program and are seeing people, you take the certification at the end. And when you take that certification at the end and pass the test, you then are certified and accredited and get to really be out there as a relationship coach. And so the goal is that you really understand everything from the inside out. And this is something that you'll be able to do if you have experience already. Amazing. You'll learn so much. If you have no experience, you are going to learn everything from the ground up. We're going to build a really solid foundation, and you're going to be able to feel like, okay, I walked away, even with no prior experience, feeling extremely competent when it comes to these tools. So, if you are somebody who's like, this resonates with me, this is something you're interested in, I did mention that there would be a special masterclass discount for everybody who attended today's session. Originally, our program starts at $7,000. For today and for the next 72 hours, it is available for $29.99. This is our early bird discount. It's actually a 50% discount as an early bird, plus an additional $300 off for everybody who attended this webinar. And it's the lowest price we offer, period. And we also have payment plans. We have payment plans that are as low as I want to say it's $169 a month. So there's a lot of availability there in terms of making it affordable, flexible. We work with people, to make sure that this can work for them if this is something you're really passionate about. And there will be a whole bunch of links coming right now into the chat for more information if Renee wants to join. Yes. And sorry. So the IAT, the next cohort is March 20th to June 5th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And so you'll be able to see all of those. Okay, let me see. There's a lot more questions. If we do on the demand version, are we able to ask questions and have them answered? No, that is one of the differences. So the live one, you get your questions answered every week. We really take the time to go through all the questions. So like your questions will definitely get answered. And there's that follow-up support all the time. Whereas the on demand, there's just a lot less availability to do any of the questions that way. So really great question. What else do we have here? How do we get a copy of our certification? Renee, I saw answered that. Thank you. Yeah, it's accessible in your online course. So once you pass the test, it shows up in your course dashboard. It automatically goes there and you'll have it all set up and certified. I thought it was happening on Thursdays. So yeah, it starts on the 20th. And then we will have another cohort much further down. But that is it for now. Yes, the accreditation is from the Association for Coaching. It's a very, very well regarded accreditation, and it's global. What else do we have here? We have lots of questions. What type of person would the self-paced version be better suited for? Generally, and I'll be honest, I would always recommend the live for anybody who's like, I'm in it. I want to be like really, really solid. The self-paced version is honestly for people if they just can't make the time and they're like, I really, really want to be there, but I can't make the time. Or for people who are like, I really, really want to be able to start this and do it and start seeing clients. And then if you want, we also allow people, because sometimes people will be like, hey, I just can't afford to do something else. And so they do the recorded, then they start building their business, make a little money with the clients. And then if they want to come back, they can pay just the difference and come to the live as well. So if they just want that extra support as they go, that's an option for sure. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, so all of this, you can click on those links in here. All of this is in there. And then also, yes, for the on-demand, it's a $17.99 upfront payment. So very, very affordable. $169 over the 12 months is available. And how many days a week does the live class meet? The live class meets every week, once a week for 2 hours. And then you have 3 hours of content recorded. And then after the 2 hours is over that we meet together and do that together, you can stick around and practice in breakout rooms in a supervised way after. So you have 2 weeks for sure that you want to come to. It's like the class itself, but you can stick around and do those practice points supervised in the breakout rooms afterwards. And yes, Nick, if anybody, Nick said, okay, is there a grant or anything like that? If you jump on a call, there's also a booking link if you want to book a call with Melanie and just ask more questions or talk a little bit more about that. If Renee and Melanie are able to put that in the chat. And then you can go through and just ask any of those questions or get any support or anything like that if we have it available. We have a certain amount of that kind of stuff available. And yes, it's Melanie at personaldevelopmentschool.com if you want to book a call. Yeah, I see a lot of people private messaging me in here. I'd like to book a call to ask more questions. You have 12 months to complete the on-demand program, Patrice. And if you finish, if you, for whatever reason, have a life situation come up and you're like, wait, I am not done within the 12 months, we can extend the time to take the test by, but you actually keep the information for life. So it's not like, oh, you only have the program for 12 months. All the tools, slides, information you will have set up for you on an ongoing basis. So it will never go away. You will always have it. Um, is the material redundant if you've already been certified in hypnotherapy and NLP? No, not at all. I would say you'll probably just appreciate it more. And I don't want to say it like from an arrogant point of view or anything like that. It's just like if you're like me and you just love to like nerd out on this stuff and you're just like so into it, you'll probably be like, oh, this is so cool because you'll see different ways that these things apply. And there's also so much work around communication, reconditioning, the nervous system, somatic experiencing type work and tools. There's so much in there beyond just that. You'll just have like an extra strong foundation in some ways, but you'll learn all fresh and all new tools for sure. And we'll be talking about how to help people recondition without them being in any sort of trance or hypnotic space. So yeah, really good question. Awesome stuff. I'm excited to hear what you think. As a speaker, this is going to help my portfolio for certain. Thank you for this opportunity. Oh, you're so welcome, Aletta. I'm excited to see you on there. Amazing stuff. And what else do we have? Is the certification exam in person at an exam center? No, no, no. Great question. It's online. So there's no, you don't have to go anywhere to be certified or anything like that. And the certification exam isn't it's really meant to make sure that you've got a good foundation, you know the material. It's not something that's like super made to be super difficult. We don't have people having a difficult time passing as long as they like showed up and went through the materials. So great question. Trudy says, you are truly amazing. I'm so super grateful you've created the certification. Your programs on PDS are making such a difference to my life coaching practices. Thank you. Oh, that's so nice, Trudy. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, another great question. Confirming we can use the materials you share within our own containers, they become yours. If you publish them like online, like on YouTube, you have to cite them. But like if you are taking them for any one-to-one clients, any presentations, corporate presentations, coaching presentations, working with people, giving speeches at your library, local library, anything like that, they're all yours. And every material you get to download, you get to keep, you get to use for your client sessions or workshops. We even talk about how to use the material to set up workshops on Business Week as lead magnets for yourself so that you can draw people in. So like you get full access to everything in that way. So really amazing question. And yeah, the goal is that those materials are things that you get to use to really spread this information and really share it. So awesome question. Yes, we all want to make this world better, healthier world, best possible lives and relationships for all. Absolutely. Will the next one be in May? If so, I do want to sign up for that one. Do we sign up for that one now, or will there be an open date? We're just finalizing for May. So if you want to, Keela, what I recommend is jump on a call with Melanie. And the calls are free. You can join in, ask any questions. And then from there, you will be able to get go through the actual materials, questions, future dates, and then book in or at least reserve for a date that works better for you if the next one isn't available. So really great question. And yes, Brianna, the live and on demand both result in the exact same type of both certification and accreditation. Great question. And how much time do we need to study if you're working full time? I would say prepare for about 3 hours a week. Okay. It doesn't have to be 3 hours. You can always do the test a little bit afterwards if you need more time, but the advice would be 3 hours a week of material and the 2 hour class. So you want to have about 5 hours a week available if you can. But again, you could whittle that down to moving it at your own pace. And doing 2 hours a week would definitely be feasible. So really great questions. And Renee And Melanie, if you can also just put in the link the free tool as well, then please share that with our attendees here today, which is right there. You see it on the Google Drive. And again, if we want to just post the links to the payment plans, any of that stuff one more time, if anybody needs any accommodations, you can meet with Melanie and see what's available as well. Melanie at Personal Development School. Um, and that is it for today. That's our masterclass. It flew by. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for your amazing questions. I look forward to seeing some of you in the class and doing this together. And again, the early bird pricing and all the super low prices will just be available for the next 72 hours. So if you book a call, just let them know that you're trying to reserve that price if your call is like later in the week, and we will hold on to it if you book a call and if you're just having some other questions that you want to ask as well. Okay. Thank you, everybody, so, so much. This was so fun. Yep, email sent to Melanie, amazing, and really excited to see all of you guys in the future. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your evening and day. Bye.